Hi, I'm Tiffany Jones,
And I'm Kelly Lewis.
and we're your revenue insiders. We are here today with guest Dr. Debbie Qaqish. Welcome to the Revenue Insiders podcast.
Thank you. Great to be on the podcast.
We are so excited to have you on. You have a lot of exciting stuff going on. So I think we'll start with an introduction.
Okay. So it's a very interesting journey. My first career out of college, I was a commodities broker, and I always tell people I used to be a lot taller than what I am right now, and that kind of makes you pretty tough. And from there, I went into technology and marketing, and that's where I've been. Started the Pedowitz Group in 2007, and Pedowitz Group, I'm still a partner of the Pedowitz Group, but we do revenue marketing transformation from technology through organization. I invented the term revenue marketing and actually launched that in 2011 with a book called Revenue Marketing, because to me, marketing should have been all about revenue. It just made sense. And then so I've spent all these years helping the marketing organization transform. And I noticed within that, it really was a lot about the people, and the people were kind of being left hanging out to dry. So my new passion is my new company called The Growth Factor. And that is where I use positive psychology tips and tricks and techniques to help marketers thrive in an always on pressure cooker environment. So that's what I'm doing today.
So exciting. This conversation is going to be really fun for me because I'm very passionate about the other side of that, which is the sales leader and how you think about that, them in the whole group of go-to-market and their role. So I think we're going to have a lot to talk about.
Oh, absolutely, Kelly. I was a VP of sales for many years.
Oh,
And I
yeah.
think that's the reason why when I went over into marketing full time, it just made sense for marketing to be involved in revenue. It just was, very, very clear to me. But yes, we could talk about sales as well.
Yes, we can. So one thing I read that you talk about quite frequently is that the biggest threat to revenue isn't just a bad funnel or a weak pipeline. It's actually the leader running it. And that can be a little bit of a controversial statement because it's a bold claim. Let's face it. How do you make a case to the CEO that it maybe not isn't a strategy problem, but or it's a strategy problem, not just a people problem. And you kind of have both of those.
That is a great question. When you guys get to know me, I am a very bold, in your face, I will call your
Love
baby ugly kind of person, but my clients love me for that, right? They love me for that. And if I'm sitting down and I'm talking to a CEO and we're talking about marketing and whether or not marketing is living up to its promise, which in most of the companies I work with is part of that revenue engine, then I always take a look at the leader first. And I have told many CEOs, I've told many CMOs, if you are not driving revenue, then you need to go get into a new line of business, because that is where B2B marketing is today. It's been B2C marketing for quite a long time. And it's so interesting. I swear to you, I never thought we'd be sitting here in 2026 as CMOs who are blessed with all this incredible enabling technology would be sitting here and they would still be struggling with making a credible contribution to revenue. And yet we are. I'll give you guys a funny story. So I got my DBA in, I think, 2018. And when you write your dissertation, you have to have a problem and there has to be a gap, right? There's got to be a gap. And my gap was there's all this enabling technology, yet only less than 30% of CMOs report any kind of credible financial results. And it took me 2 years to write my dissertation. That was a bear. And during that time, I was so afraid that that gap would close and that 2 years from now, all these, and that absolutely positively has not happened. So I just think in business, you just have to call it like it is. And if there's an expectation that marketing should be part of that revenue performance and they are not, then we have to take a look at everything. Now, that also includes so many other factors, but the very first place I always look is, do you have the right leader? It is amazing how many CMOs still have their head totally in brand, which is critical, and know next to nothing about revenue. And also how many CMOs are still yes, sir, yes, ma'am people. So
Mm.
whatever the board that,
Yes.
they don't take any accountability, and they just want to keep their job.
Why? So I have a question really quick, Tiffany, because I'm so curious because this comes up in conversations I have with my clients all the time. And because I was never a leader in a marketing team, I cannot figure out what it is. But why are CMOs so scared to carry and have aligned sales revenue targets? And when I say
Well,
that, I so often see KPIs that are like lead or MQL. And I'm like, no, 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 that's too high in the funnel. You need to be responsible for more than that.
the good ones want that, but there is a critical point. And let me just give you one tiny example. And for example, I bought Eloqua in 2011. That was like customer number 12.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It was way back in the day. And I remember I gave my marketing team 50% of their variable comp was tied to the number of leads that we sent over to sales that converted to opportunities, right?
Mhm.
Not that just got sent over. But here's the problem. If you don't have that sales and marketing alignment on steroids, here's what happens. They all agree on what a lead looks like. They all agree it should come over to sales at this point. And then sales is not putting it into the system correctly. They're not attributing, because you have to do some keystrokes in Salesforce or CRM, whatever you've got, to make sure that that is tied to. I'll give you another example. I was talking to a customer recently, and she heads up events. And she said, last year I went to my sales team and I said, we're not doing this event, or this event because I have no ROI. There was nothing in Salesforce that told us we had any ROI. And guess what happened? They all of a sudden started putting things into Salesforce that represented that, yes, this was definitely worth their time. There has to be these two parts have to work together, and they have to believe in each other, and they must have credibility with each other for that to work.
I love this so much. So I run go-to-market operations, which includes marketing operations as well as revenue operations. So I live and breathe in kind of this like symbiotic space that you're talking
Mhm.
about, but it's always a struggle. And I think I just got through the planning phase at my company, and one of the things that we spend a lot of time talking about is like how unimportant the idea of marketing generated pipeline really is. Like all that matters is the pipeline number. Like marketing's ultimately like contributing like between brand and events, like they're touching everything. So who cares what the marketing pipeline number is? You need to care about the overall number. And that's just like
That
one
that
step
is exactly
before.
right. And
Yeah.
and that's why when I go into an organization and I see that there's a revenue team and marketing's on that team, I know they've got the right stuff and they're going to be doing it the right way. But there is still such a tussle between sales and marketing and that credibility. Now, I will say this, since the rise of marketing operations, which has been going on like a good 10 years now, that relationship has improved dramatically. And it has improved dramatically because marketing ops is more of a master of data and data that tells the truth, right? And they've kind of become like Switzerland between sales and marketing. And I always see a good marketing ops team that is real with the data. That data aligns with what sales is presenting to the board, and everybody's on the same page. And again, that's been one of the huge wins from having a dedicated marketing ops organization or a rev ops organization, depending on how that's structured.
Yeah. So I want to go back to, so you said you've transitioned from this revenue, the OG of revenue marketing, to some of the leadership principles you started talking about. But then
Mhm.
Kelly asked a question about like talking about like people being part of the problem and not just the strategy. What are the things that you do to help the people understand how to like look and act different? Or is it oftentimes just like there are people who are so ingrained in how they've always done marketing that it often is like a refresh rebuild when you're working with these
Well,
companies?
that's a lot packed into one question, Tiffany. So I think there's a couple of ways that we can look at this. Let's say, for example, that I'm working with an organization that really does want to transform from being a pens and mugs department into part of the revenue team, right? beyond making sure they have the right technology, there is a ton of change management that needs to happen. Nothing is more important than rewriting the role of marketing in the organization. That absolutely has to happen, and everyone has to understand it. And there has to be, I always put together a full communication plan as part of that transformation plan. People need to understand what this is and why it matters to them. You can't just keep go to a meeting. I'm going to start giving you leads, and you're going to, start converting those. So I think from that perspective, it's very important. And I've always been very linked in to the people on the teams that I work with. It's just kind of like my natural style. And so for years, I helped transform organizations, and we would do change management planning and communication planning. And sometimes we would do some soft skills training, right? However, what I've noticed, and you guys are well aware of this, the level of stress and the level of toxicity in corporate America today is like unprecedented.
Mm.
And what has happened is that, typically in a work environment, it's stress, 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 get the project out, relax. Now we're at this fight or flight level constantly, right?
Mhm.
And when that happens, when you are in that level of stress all the time, you cannot perform at your best. And it's not technology that's going to get you out of that, right? It's going to be the principles of positive psychology, which I talk about in my new company. For example, what is the value of having an open mindset? Well, one of the values of having an open mindset is when all these constant changes, you're always trying to reframe the situation from negative to positive, and or you are saying, let me be curious about this rather than just shutting down, right? Or another example would be when you're in a highly stressed situation, understanding what's happening neurologically. And a lot of the work everything that I do is based on neuroscience and positive
Mm.
psychology research. I don't I'm not a rah-rah. It's all based on real stuff, right? So when I tell you to inhale for 4 counts and exhale for 6 and hold it, it's because you're trying to calm down your parasympathetic and you're sympathetic so that you can get back to your parasympathetic. These are real things. And in our always on culture, it's the social media, it's the work, it's the crazy budgets, it's the changes, it's the layoffs. All of those things add to us as a society being overstressed to the max. And positive psychology helps you understand what's happening in your brain and your body, and then gives you very simple things to do at work that help you perform in this always on environment of stress and also help you thrive.
I think it's so important. I see so many leaders who have been really successful their entire career, and they're in this new world the last 3 years, 4 years, and they're really struggling. And I think it comes down to exactly what you're talking about is there is no break. There's no moment to reset. And they're constantly under a different level of pressure than organizations we're in, especially Tiffany and I, who have been a lot of our career in SaaS tech.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Most of the companies I work with, SaaS tech, absolutely.
Yeah.
And we know what those ups and downs and that pressure is like.
So when you're talking to these individuals who have been lifelong leaders and very successful, how do you talk to them about changing their approach and thinking about things differently? Because it's really hard to convince someone who's been doing something one way and been really successful doing it one way to think about things differently. How's that conversation go?
That conversation is always welcome. Maybe I just attract people who are ready to have that conversation.
Fair.
That could be it. But there's not a marketing executive I know on the planet today that's not stressed to the max. And I know sales, I mean, everybody is stressed, but I spend most of my time with marketers and they are ready because it's like, I'm doing the best I can, but I'm going backwards and I'm so stressed. I'm not doing my best work. So what has happened is that while we help marketers learn, communication skills, or we help them learn, how to use HubSpot or, how to use their, whatever they have, what we haven't done is prepared them to perform in an always on stressful environment. This is why I say that this is bigger than AI, right? And I just did we do a revenue marketing raw every Tuesday, Jeff Pedowitz and I at the Pedowitz Group, and we just go at it. And today we were talking about AI and the effect on the workforce. And I truly believe that when I sit down and I talk to an executive about this missing factor and the fact that you're always in a high stress environment and your cortisol never gets a chance to go down and your amygdala is firing and your fight or flight all the time, you cannot do your best work. So what do? The pressure is not going to go away. It is constant. And we all know, especially in SaaS companies, it is not going to go away. So what you do is you apply the concepts of positive psychology and neuroscience to calm down your nervous system physically so that you can actually think and work. I'm doing a series of TikToks right now, and these are micro habits that you could do right at your desk, right? And these are micro habits like breathing, like calling out the emotion, things like that. And I will tell you guys this, I first became interested in, used to call these life skills because I've been in therapy for a lot of years. I think a lot of people have been in therapy, but my therapy really was a lot around depression. I've had lifelong depression. And I remember learning these great skills in therapy and saying, why aren't we teaching everybody these skills? Like when you see a situation, instead of negative, let's reframe it as positive, right? It's because that rewires the brain to be thinking positive, right? So all these things that you can do, and yet no one is systematically looking at how we need to retool the workforce and enable them so they can thrive in an always on pressure environment.
You touched on AI just then, and we never escape an episode without talking about AI.
Of course.
We're talking about positive psychology, and it all comes back to AI. But I feel like, at least in my own experience, a lot of the assumption from senior leadership, and I put myself in this camp too, in some of the cases, is that you'll be more efficient with that pressure if you just use AI. If we just implement the right tool, we'll take those really stressful, low hanging tactical things off your plate and you'll have all the time to think, and that's part of the solution. I'd love to get like your thoughts on how AI tools across the board, not just like ChatGPT or LLMs, like how those are playing into people's own, like their psychology and well-being, and some of the things that you're talking about.
That's bullshit.
I love it.
Chat GPT is creating more stress. It's not creating less. And one of the reasons, and early user, use it every day, use it in everything that I do. It is amazing. And again, my topic today on Revenue Marketing Raw was all about AI. But here's where AI is, right? So AI is going to help you do things better and faster. But positive psychology is going to help the operator of the system be all that they can be. That's the difference. And in many cases, it has added this incredible layer of stress, even though it has incredible opportunity, but the stress, because change, people always stress over change, even good change. Think about your wedding day, the happiest day of your life, and you were stressed to the max, right? So AI has added this whole layer of stress to everything else. It is a game changer. I was telling somebody earlier, I'm a big science fiction reader. I've read science fiction forever, started with Star Trek original, all the way back. And AI is bringing us into that future. But we're leaving our people behind on this. We really are, because it is not reducing stress. It is increasing. Think about all the people who are losing their jobs because of AI. Think of all the people who need to get retrained because of AI. Think about all the people sitting thinking, I think I've got AI, but I know it's going to change tomorrow. Then what am I going to do? Right? So it's a good and a bad. Any kind of technology evolution is going to create more stress in the environment. And this one is legendary. We used to think that the internet was the legendary one, right? But it is absolutely positively AI. So I think the more we can think about the psychological impact of stress on our workforce, and the more we can prepare them to be successful and perform in a high stress environment, because it is not going away.
Yeah.
One thing that's coming up for me, and I say to myself quite frequently, is like, control your controllables. Like, you can't control everyone around you, but you can control the way you react to them. But as a leader, I also know that like I need to support my people and think about my people. And I'm just putting myself in my shoes at past companies where I might be hearing what you're saying and thinking, absolutely, this is something that we have a systematic problem at our organization with, and we need to address. And I think it's really important. But I also think about how that would go over in some of those boardrooms.
Mm.
The conversation of, do we invest in this? Is it worth it? Especially when people are pulling back away from a lot of
Yeah.
programs like this. How do you, especially if someone, let's talk about the frontline manager, the director level, like how do they have a conversation with their more senior leaders about the importance of this without it coming across as,
Woo
let's use the
woo.
word soft. Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
exactly.
bunch of woo
Yeah.
woo.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
they do it with science. That's how they do
Okay.
it. There are so many studies and this research around positive psychology has been active since around the 70s, right? Started with Robert Seligman. And so this research is gigantic. And there are more and more articles coming out every day about the exact issue that we are talking about. We are a titch away from going mainstream with this idea that the psychological health of our people is the key to unlocking performance. Once we recognize that the stress will never go away, there's no more cycles, right? The stress is never going to go away. So how do we prepare people to perform at their best for themselves and the company in a high stress environment? And then it's all going to be based on research. And there is so much research out there that you can point to in neuroscience, right? We've come so far with neuroscience, and everything that positive psychology does is attached to neuroscience. Again, in a high stress situation, your your paranormal system is just firing on all cylinders. It's fight or flight. And this is exactly what happens when you're in a high stress situation. Your stress hormone is constant, the cortisol. And as a result of that, your vision narrows. Everything looks like a negative. You can't think clearly and you're extraordinarily reactive. Now, what if we could take all that away and rather than be all that you could be across the entire marketing team every single minute of the day? What kind of impact would that make on your organization?
I mean, I can attest to this. Tiffany knows this.
Yeah.
So, Allie,
We're both
I
laughing.
took a cortisol test, it was a couple years ago when I was still back in corporate America. And it was off the charts. Like literally they couldn't even like the normal cortisol level charts. They were like, oh, you're beyond what we have ever like put on a chart. So I can attest to that.
Oh,
And
great
it's,
job.
and like weird, I quit, maybe a little reactive. But yeah, I think so many people are feeling that. And it's not people who are not being successful. I was still very successful,
Mhm.
but I
Yeah,
was
miserable.
inside
Yeah,
struggling and miserable.
right. Exactly. Exactly. And, and my goal is to not just help performance, but to help marketers thrive at work. There's no reason why we can't thrive at work if we're given the right tools to do that. And I'm finding that more people are open to this conversation. Guys, it's like in 2011, when I started talking about revenue marketing, I would get one of two responses. Either they would look at me like I had grown a second head and was speaking Sanskrit, or they would say, that's interesting, right? And we're finding a lot more people who want to delve into this because we're all feeling it. We're all feeling it. And this idea that we could have a new set of training and a new set of preparation to help us be the best, perform the best in that always on pressure environment. That's pretty intriguing. And if it's not, I don't want to talk to them anyway.
I mean, I think everything you're talking about, like the science definitely backs it up. I'm totally bought in. Like I'm bought into this concept for sure. But I think even without the science, you can rely on like some tried and true sayings in business, right? Like people don't leave companies, they leave managers because
They
the
do.
managers were creating that psychological safety for that pod, like they were helping them reframe, or they
Uh-huh,
weren't at all. And they were just
uh-huh,
building that pressure and
uh-huh.
reacting more and more, and people leave. And so I think that like you can see the proof in a lot of like classic business knowledge things that
You
people
you
already
you
do.
you absolutely can, and that I think is a great example. You can take a look at the burnout rates. You can take a look at the number of people that are depressed in America right now. The average age of depression onset is now about 14 in the United States. It used to be like 23. And
Makes me
so
so
we can
sad.
take a look at all of these indicators. And again, the constant is pressure's not going anywhere. So, how can you not be in a constant fight or flight mode so that you can think and you can perform and you can thrive?
I'm
There are
so
so many tools to do that with. It's incredible the toolkit that we can offer to people.
I'm so excited about this. And one of the reasons I'm most excited about this is we spend, and I'm part of this, so much time training our sellers in investment. We buy them methodologies and we train them. But the other teams in the revenue org do not get that same training budget
No, they don't.
and do not get thought of in this way. And so it makes me really happy to see an investment in something like marketing, RevOps, enablement, where you're actually investing in the people in those orgs because they oftentimes get left out.
They
Yeah.
do, they do, and marketing is the worst, uh, because I spent a good part of my career doing learning and training development for large organizations, and my graduate degree was in training as well, and to see marketing not getting the training that they deserve. I mean, really, the best training you get, I went to a conference and I learned something, or it's just what he or she used to do, which is so ridiculous given the value of a marketing department. But yes, that is absolutely positively true. However, AI can help that dramatically, right? We worked with a couple of companies earlier last year, and we used AI to develop some fabulous courses. So rather than having to spend tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands on a whole library of training, I mean, that is one of the great values of AI, is using AI to develop training quickly and make it valuable and make it very specific for your marketers.
This conversation's been really interesting, like focus on the marketing side of things, which again, like owning marketing ops is something like I've spent a lot of time like digging into to really understand in the last year since I took that on. But a lot of
Well,
our
I'll have to
conversation,
send you a copy of my book, From Backroom to
I
Boardroom.
yeah,
It's all
I would
about strategic marketing operations.
let's do, yes, I would love
Okay.
that.
All right.
But the other thing that I think of as we have this conversation, and Kelly, I'm thinking back to a conversation you and I had recently, is so much of what you're saying applies to CS as well. The customer success side of the business also doesn't get the same training budget. It's constantly like they are hearing from customers that are mad all the time. It's always fight or flight. Churn has been through the roof, and everyone is just saying, lower your churn. Like boards just want it lower. I
I
feel
just want
like,
to go out. I
yeah,
just want to go out and slap companies for there's so much value in the CS group. They're the front line with customers. They know what they're asking for. They know what is going on. And that data is rarely ever mined. And they are treated like the redheaded stepsister. There's just no question about it. And that is just so wrong. I will say that one of the points that I made in our stream today, when I think about I do think that AI is going to force companies to bring the customer forward. And once they bring that customer forward, you have to have this handshake between sales, marketing, and customer service
hmm
or the customer success teams. And so I do see that, but that is a pressure cooker environment for sure, and very, very underrated. I completely agree with you on that, Tiffany.
I know. My favorite question to ask when I go into a new client is who runs customer marketing and how often do you talk to your customer success team? It's not usually very high if there's anyone focused on it.
Or how often do you talk to the customer, right?
Yeah. Also, we have a
Yeah,
customer advisory board.
yeah. That's a really good one too, right?
All the things. Oh my gosh. This has been a really fun conversation. We're about to dive into our point of view question. But before we do, you've shared a lot of information. You're obviously launching a new company. Where can people get more information?
Fantastic. So I have created an asset just for Revenue Insider listeners, and the URL will be Revenue Insiders /reset. And when you go there, you will get a little 5-card deck that allows you to decompress on the spot, right at job, right before you go into that meeting, right before you send that email. It's just a handy on your phone type of asset. So we'll have that definitely available for you.
I'm downloading it for sure. I could use it. Love it. Okay. So, final question for you is, what's a question or something that you want the audience to think about for the next week? What can they do to create their own point of view on what we just talked about today?
That's a great question. That is a fabulous question. I think what I would ask them to do is to suspend their current beliefs and imagine that they were building the marketing department or the sales department from scratch. And I would say within that, what does our workforce need to be successful? Suspend any prior beliefs, suspend anything that's happening in your company right now. And I think what you'll see is you're probably here and you need to be like way over here. But sometimes if we just remove the restrictions, whether they're mental or based on our company, and just, free flow, that thinking, then consider all the changes in marketing. And within that new environment, how do we ensure that our marketers thrive at work every day and perform at their best? What would that look like?
I love it. It's a great question. It's definitely relevant for me. So
Great
I will
question.
spend some time thinking about that for sure. Thank you so much, Dr. Debbie. We are so excited that you were able to join us today. This was a fantastic conversation. You've already left us with where we can find our 5-card deck for, really centering ourselves for some positive psychology. So thank you so much. And thank you
And
to
my
everyone.
URL is growth factor.
Okay. Growthfactor.us. So this is such an important topic and think something we don't talk about enough. And thank you for specializing in this and bringing us this information.
It's my passion and my pleasure. So thank you very much for having me on the podcast.
Absolutely. Thanks, everyone.